bottom of the ocean. I'm at the bottom of the sea. I'm at the bottom of the ocean. Don't know if I'll make it back home.
सागरे गपगरे गपधा पगरे ग सारे
Welcome back, everybody, to the UPL here for our fall 2021 season. We are starting things off here on day three, so to say. Sorry, I've been doing this so often, and you also do this for their Valorant here as well. But my name's Infernos, is joined here
Yeah.
by my friend, fellow, and we've got ourselves a great matchup today. Great two teams that haven't necessarily been proven themselves yet so far. Team Gusic versus that Psych Ward side, and I know a lot of the player names on these sides, but the rosters themselves as a whole, maybe not so much. John, why don't you tell us a little bit about the players themselves?
I will, but first off, only friend, not best friend, not
Well,
caster buddy,
earlier
not good
today,
looking,
you did
tall,
hit me with a
handsome,
sus joke, and I
nothing.
took that
I
personally. I did. I took it personally. So I kind
I
of,
I called you baby and everything, and you just
you
you just
did do
spat in my
that. And
face.
you know what? I
That
take it
that's
back.
not
My
that's not
great
very
friend
cool.
fellow is joining me in the booth today. We're
Thank
really
you.
excited.
That's much better. I'll remember that, Scott. I'll remember that next time we cast together, which hopefully
What
will
is
be
it? The
sooner rather than later.
Telltale Games? Like,
Anyways,
fellow will
they don't
remember
actually
that.
remember that though. Let's get into the rosters though. We're probably having Tango up in a swerve here as we're wasting a lot of his time. Gusic and Psych Ward, like you mentioned, a little bit of a familiarity here between both of these teams for Gusic. It's going to be basically all of Half Bliss, essentially, from that old team. It's Unlimited, Baxley, Teddy, Amp, and Narmu. Then on the side of Psych Ward, it'll be Rob, Salt, Corn, Iski, I believe it's how it's pronounced, and Kojin, which I'm not going to lie to you, Scott. I think I've heard of maybe one or two of these players on Psych Ward, and the rest is just kind of a blur, to be honest. These players have a lot to prove, and in their first debut matchup, they didn't really prove a lot. They only got one round win and lost 7-1. So hopefully this can be their redemption arc, but I know that Gusic will probably give them a run for their money.
Yeah, I really like the Team Cusick side. I mean, obviously, when you're talking about Baxley, Teddy Amp, Narmu, Unlimited, like their roster is fairly stacked. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can do and what they can piece together. Maybe not getting the most luck elsewhere, but we'll have to see how it necessarily fares out. But I guess the biggest question is going to be what map we're heading to next. And I've been given glimpses by our observer saying we really are falling into that T3, T4 special. Chalet was banned first. I am actually going to be rooting for Psych Ward because it was Team Gusick who banned it. So Psych Ward, you are the team of the day, so to say, but
But
decided we're
Gusic
going to
did ban
Viller.
Cafe, though, Scott. You need to take
Actually,
that
they
into
did. It is a
consideration.
redemption. I'm back to neutral ground. You're correct. I
Yeah.
am back to neutral ground. But we are going to Villa. I'm really excited for this map. I do actually really like Villa. I think it's nice to have that change of pace between the maps. And so I think that it's probably fairly entertaining towards, being a player, being a caster, to be able to watch in and see the strategies on this one. But for the way that I know Team Cusick likes to play, they are a little bit aggressive on their roam game. So I do put up in the air saying where are they going to, I guess, centralize their roam on the defense. And I think it's got to be mostly that first floor and library side, because you know that attackers in recent times are tossing nades to flush out players from behind bar, flush out that corner hallway. I think that there's a really good chance for their roam game to be successful, but no attacking team's going to let that go in good fashion.
I'm really wondering how the bans will turn out when we actually go inside a Villa. But yeah, you mentioned the roam game. It's incredibly strong on Villa. One thing that I like that Villa does in comparison to another gigantic map like Cafe, it allows that roam to be a little bit more seamless. You've got that whole basement floor just to rotate around. There's several different stairwells. Yes, Cafe has a lot of stairs as well, but it's just a lot more clunky when roaming on Cafe unless it's top to bottom. you really get the pick of the litter when it comes to playing on Villa as a roamer. So this should be a pretty exciting matchup to play since you mentioned that aggressiveness on the side of Team Gusic, and they are on the defensive half first and foremost. But getting the bans underway, I'm wondering if any of these bans will try to tailor in towards helping the roamer, maybe hindering it in the process as well. Only time will tell. Is so far we've only got Thatcher off the board, and that's a common.
Fairly common, fairly standardized ban. I mean, he can kind of be left up in the air when it comes to this map, and a lot of teams recently have been leaving him unbanned on a lot of maps. Because when you talk about Thatcher as a whole, yes, his EMPs are strong, but they're limited amount. They're not as good as they used to be, getting rid of a lot of utility, and not many teams actually know how to coherently bring him into their lineups in the current meta that it is, which is just plain frankly dump flashbangs into sight, get rid of the util on the defensive side, and hope that those broken, flashes get rid of some retinas on the opposing side. But second man to go through, it'll be Ace. Selma's no longer up on the board. Mirror will be the third total, second for the side of Psych Ward. But a blast band to go through. Team Gusic's going to get Valkyrie. Nothing too shocking to see, these cameras go off the board. It's complete and utter denial of intel, and that's really what the game does come down to in a lot of recent states. Deny the information, you can deny attackers and defenders from feeling safe. You see a lot of engagements go either way, especially when the fact that in the current meta of the scene of taking full control of one floor or the other before engaging in a different direction, you may be able to gather information on one player, but 5 seconds later, they're all the way on the other side of the map and they're nowhere near where you just lied.
Just those seamless rotations that I mentioned earlier. Dining Kitchen going to be the first on the board here for Team Gusic, which is a little shocking, but since they tend to be a little bit more aggressive, I guess it's not really that far-fetched that they want to get the oddball out and maybe just throw in some left hooks. That cap can pick as well, a really good example of just trying to throw some random stuff in against Psych Ward. Those EDDs, it seems really impractical to bring them, but you never really know exactly where those traps can actually be placed unless you do a really good job of droning, or if you've already blown yourself up from one of them previously and now you are checking every single doorway to make sure it doesn't happen yet again and end up dying in the process. And it's easy to kill, and I think it's just recent change has finally gone live where you can stack multiple cap cans on the same door. I don't know if Bax is going to be attempting that this time around, but he's setting up his EDDs very proactively, very far away from the site, and that will help out in terms of not being very likely to check them, blowing people up from the very beginning, and just making them easier targets moving forward into the actual action phase, which is going underway in a few short seconds.
Current defensive setup's going to be fairly standardized of obviously reinforcing hard wall at the master bedroom. You just want to delay time in that direction for as long as possible. If you're on the side of Psych Ward, you've got 3 attempted strategies that are usually, I guess, the strongest when it comes to attacking this one. Obviously, one's going to be that quick, swift rush through supply, taking control and trying to push from that pantry. And you also have the option of taking control of the second floor, getting control of the master bedroom, take the open floor plan strategy using, ashing breaching charges like we have, Sophia impacts, sledgehammer, which Rob is bringing to the table. There's a lot of util to be able to destroy these floors and kind of make it hard for Team Gusic to sit still and sit pretty. But so far, from the looks of things, Psych Ward are still trying to gain control of the second floor. Nothing too shocking with only 30 seconds really having passed in this round. But Psych Ward are also doing a fairly good job with mobility pushing forward. And they're also going to do a great job with kills. Sean sprays down one towards Astronomy. Great shot to connect. A second one turning over, finding Baxley, who is trying to sit over by Statue and Statuary's side. And he's not going to be able to find the shots in the most prime of opportunities. And it's just Teddy kind of sitting still. He may be able to tag Kojin, but now has to get away from the rest of the opposition. Double spray down. A double peek there as Korn finds the kill onto Teddy. 2 players left standing for Team Gusic. A minute and 50 seconds do remain. You're basically having to rely on nothing but 1 nitro now. Nope, no nitro now as it's been used. Second one's already been tossed as well. Limited in Narmu in a very bad spot.
You've got your Konas to work with, and that's just about it. Some of them could be destroyed as well via those vertical sight lines here. About a minute 30 on the board, and it's just Narmu in a 1v5 as Unlimited gets ripped to shreds by that LMG in the hands of Korn, his second for the round. Spray down comes in through. It'll be a third for Korn. The buddy ace by both him and the Ash, giving the first round win in the way of Psych Ward. What an immediate start for them to already clear out the roam, get that vertical play established, and then just have a pretty straightforward first round win. I think they did it flawlessly as well, Scott.
Yeah, it was a flawless round win for Psych Ward. They played that one spectacularly, obviously starting off strong with a quick, swift entry into that second floor. Sean himself finding the first 2 picks, and then everything just started to cascade in their favor as the round went on. Team Gusic just couldn't get themselves sediment enough. They tried to be a little bit more aggressive than I think they should have been in a lot of those problems. And ultimately, Psych Ward's aggressiveness and their swiftness is what ultimately kind of bit the side of Team Gusic in the rear. And that kind of brings up multiple questions when you're talking about trying to attack or defend on the map of Villa. If you play really swiftly and you're talking about that usually tertiary objective choice, pushing in through pantries where you're like, oh, they're going to take that swiftly. But no, they just took control of the second floor swiftly. A much swifter clear. I hate saying that word that many times than it was usually anticipated. And that's why Sean was able to find a really nice long shot angle through to Astronomy. And then obviously trying to find a second one through Statuary as Baxley just whiffed their shots and just didn't find themselves a good enough position to find that kill, which just dug the grave deeper against Team Gusic.
Just off the bat, getting control of Study, then just working your way throughout the top floor, and yeah, Sean just lining up 2 easy entries, forcing Gusic to fall back really early and giving a lot of map control. Probably a little bit quicker than anticipated. Like you said, very swiftly. That was a really good word to use there, although it was a lot of it. But hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I suppose. And I'm wondering if Psych Ward will continue just this top clear and really not try to emphasize much on the lower floor. The only real major site you have to do that almost every single time is Trophy and Statuary, but every now and again when you need to get hard destruction down near those walls leading into Study from either the site of Aviator or Bar, you might have to go underneath from time to time, but mostly when that's being done, you tend to bring out the buck as it just makes it 10 times easier. But both the hard explosive charges of the Lifeline explosives by Korn and also those Ash charges in the hands of Sean, it could probably do the job as well just fine. So the sky is really the limit here for Psych Ward, as they had a really great start, and I'm just hoping they can keep that same forward momentum, really.
Entry seemingly pivoted towards the master bedroom side for Psych Ward. They're trying to find a bit of an entry. This one apparently not as swift as we've seen prior, as we had seen already that Sean had taken control of the whole floor, essentially at least half the floor at this point in time. Taking this one a little bit slower. They have a double-pronged assault and put themselves up through master bedroom and also through that trophy big window. And that's going to allow for them to kind of pincer in one of the players that should be sitting defensively. Sean had a great opportunity, almost misses it against Amp, but will step up huge, turning, flicking, finding him, and not really giving away his position too much. Baxley's going to go in the roam. Did sprint over them. That's going to give away his position as well. Iski's just going to dump some flashes in that direction. None of them actually blinding Baxley in the process, but a drone finds his position, now forcing him away. And Shot's going to start to go on the hunt, but it decides to step away with Iski not far behind. Baxley's going to be trapped now down below on the first floor. Quick rotate. Mudroom possibility for Window. I don't think Rob actually wants to intend to go for that direction. Instead, still trying to focus towards that trophy big window, trying to find themselves a crossfire towards landing entrance, and maybe trying to find an early pick if possible. But I don't think Team Gusic's going to give them up anything. But I'll tell you what they're giving up right now. Information. They have not cleared a drone inside of that office room, and that's going to be a huge devastator against them, as any and all util, any and all information for Psych Ward is just going to be devastating against this Team Gusic's defense.
Oh, that's a big nitro self. It lands, and it will. Kojin now down for the count. Those air jabs nullifying most of that roam, but the C4, it really does not seem to care about it at all, as they can just be thrown in through some soft flooring. Sean gets downed as well. So technically a 4 favoring Gusic in this last minute or so, but Sean could most likely be picked up, as there isn't a lot of presence lurking around near 90, and that will finally happen. Sean gets picked back up, so he can utilize those next 2 Ash charges to maybe break through some deployable shields, allow for those 2 fragmentation grenades to be prioritized on maybe some players to make that man advantage a little bit more hefty, favoring the way of Psych Ward, as there isn't much more time left in here. Sean being able to pick up another for himself. That'll be his double kill of the round, but he'll get taken care of by a limited eventually. So we're back in an equal man count once again. Time's still ticking, only about 25-ish seconds or so, and Psych Ward, they really seem locked out of the objective room currently. Can't really do much in this current moment. Still plenty of utility in the hands of Smoke. He throws out his last Toxic Babe. Spray down comes in through, unlimited his second. He swings 90, but Korn is waiting, but there goes the trade, and it's just Iski on such little HP. Gets rid of Narmu, but Baxley is there inside of Study. An easy trade once again, as Team Gusic will make the round count 50-50, 1-1.
Baxley with the backstab, just his position not known in that spot, and it's a quick and easy flank for him as he steps in through that study doorway, and it's going to give Team Gusic themselves a very strong defensive hold. For Psych Ward, you kind of got snuffed out a little bit too quickly when you're talking about trying to pushing in from landing. Obviously, with Sean going down, it was a bit of a precarious position for them. Yeah, you needed those breaching rounds, and you need your position to find yourself some early kills, or sorry, some early util dump into the site, get rid of some of those ADSs that are situated. There's a couple more variables in play when you're trying to push in through that classical Hall 90, and they did a fairly good job of that. Obviously, your Zofia player had a really nice angle to find out the roaming Jaeger sitting over towards Lamplight and actually holding in on top of red stairs, but at the same time, they didn't have their side covered whatsoever, because the way that Team Gusic played that one, they left that wall soft leading into billiards, and when you have that game's wall soft, it allows for you to spray down any and all players that are attempting to roam down that hallway, and that's going to allow for you to hold that one a little bit stronger, but it also does give away a couple sight lines, so you have to be very wary about where you're defending. So if you're on the attacking team here on Psych Ward, the question is, hey, this wall is soft. There's only a couple angles they can really hold that's going to give them an advantage. Where do I pre-fire these spots? Where do I look? And I just don't think Psych Ward were necessarily in the right mind or really had the strats behind it to back themselves up trying to pre-fire those angles. And that was ultimately their downfall when it came to trying to push in from that direction.
Psych Ward just never made the rotation. That's simple. You mentioned it relatively well, having those kill holes made. It makes that push into study a lot more difficult. And it was essentially a funnel. Yes, you had Sledge going underneath. He ended up going up and towards main stairs. But because there was no emphasis in the back area near Aviator and Bar past the study side, it really nullified that. There wasn't much that Psych Ward could do. They got low on time and even lower on players, and it was just a simple waiting game essentially for Gusic. So great job of just stalling that inevitable push. And Psych Ward, like I mentioned, you needed to make that rotation so much sooner. After you revived Sean, he found a pick. You really should have started to be thinking, hey, maybe we should attack from more than one angle, and only your Sledge was really thinking of that. That was just your biggest mistake. If you made that rotation, that might have been a little bit more of a favorable round for you, but sadly, that's not going to be the case. Moving in around number 3, though, I'm wondering if Gusic I'm wondering if they're going to try to reattempt going in towards Kitchen. I highly doubt it, as that was a very abysmal round from the beginning, but there is a lot that could have been improved on, though. It just came down to a simple gun differential and overextension, and that's something that a lot of teams really struggle with, just knowing when to push and knowing when to peel away.
They weren't quick enough on the refrag, John. I mean, that was really one of the big problems we
Yeah.
saw there. There were so many options for them to go for that refrag, and they didn't do it. Like Baxley swinging out from next to statue and trying to find Sean after he found that phenomenal shot over towards astronomy, and he failed. Sean was able to turn and find the kill, and also didn't get the kill instantly. It took them to fire at each other like a bunch of mad lads to even get the job done. It was an abysmal performance there by Baxley, which is not something I would anticipate from him, considering just how much I highly value Baxley as a player. He's great. He's phenomenal. I love seeing him play, and I do think the Mozzie pick is a smarter choice for him. I think he plays exceptionally well on it. And I think that's just something that's doomed. If I think Baxley, I think Mozzie 99% of the time. We've seen that be a bit more successful for him. Obviously, 2 kills to his name now, and 1. Eddie doing a little bit of a Michael Jackson impersonation, just walking in place. But nothing
Forward
beyond that for it. But as we see this defensive setup go underway, obviously Astronomy Stairs is going to be a bit of an emphasis as we're here on the Statue Range Trophy side. They got to kind of slow down the Psych Ward assault. That's been a big problem for him, obviously, in round 1. They were able to keep it at bay for a little bit there in round 2, but a lot of it, like I said, came down to the fact that Classical Hall was a funnel, and there was no safety behind those walls because Team Gusic opened those up and really made it impossible for Psych Ward to safely progress in that direction. This time around, though, there's a hard wall blocking 2 hard walls connecting from bathroom, obviously, to that closet side, and then obviously from master bedroom wall. Those are your 2 main variables of entry, and it's not a variable that time around. And obviously, another problem now underway is Teddy has seemingly disconnected, and it's now a 4v5 of Team Gusic versus Psych Ward.
Well, the moonwalk has quite literally sent him to the moon, as he is no longer in the game. How unfortunate. You've done nothing wrong, and you're already at the disadvantage. Now this roam game is going to be a lot more critical, as you cannot go into that rehost. We're already so deep into the game. doesn't really make sense to do it now at this point, even though the situation is quite unfortunate. And Sean is already on the prowl, the very basement floor near Wine Cellar. He's just kind of prowling around, looking, trying to spot out Ant, perhaps, as he knows or at least anticipates someone to be in that bottom floor. But I think the rotation has finally been confirmed by Ant. So just a bit of a time waste, and time here is going to be very critical as well, not just wasting bodies itself, but those vital seconds, because if we get into another funnel position, this should, in theory, be another round win here for Gusic. That was their best ability on round number 2, was just making sure they were able to stall the push leading up in towards zombie / skull door leading into site itself, and also that classic hallway. And so long as they only have to worry about 1 point of contention, they should be in another winnable situation where they can get themselves that second win. But of course, they're still at that man disadvantage due to a disconnection, and there's been no bloodshed other than that disconnection step.
It's a bit of a stalemate right now. Psych Ward's looking for their opportunity to find the first kill, and Team Gusic are playing this one really retroactively. They're kind of sitting still, not pushing anywhere aggressively, trying to play this one into their own terms. But eventually, Psych Ward will have the util to work with, since they're bringing in Ash in a bit of a, I guess, off-meta choice in a lot of recent times. They can use that breaching round from below, get rid of shield that's behind desk and astronomy. Unfortunately for them, nobody's actually sitting behind, but it does at least guarantee that a little bit of a safety net for them to push forward. But unfortunately for them, Unlimited has quite a bit of range. He'll find himself an opportune kill on Deshaun, who's attempting to step off from Astronomy stairs. A player now repelling in from Big Window, leading from Astronomy side, and he'll be able to find one of his own. Rob swings to Unlimited. Narmu steps up big with the SMG-11, capping off the head of Rob, but Frag's going in both directions. Maxley may be able to get that Nitro Cell off on Iski, but he's quickly refragged back by the LMGE of Korn. Trying to keep this doorway stopped. It will be an effective hit with that Mossberg, but it'll be the Toxic Bait that actually finds the kill. Korn's last man standing, but it's not going to be for much longer. The Vector in the hands of Amp finds themselves a prime opportune kill, and it's going to have to be forced to a rehost and bring that player back into this one. A lot of problems here, John. A lot of tech difficulties. In the first 3 rounds.
So having everyone set up in towards astronomy, not a horrible idea. That Ash play underneath to break the shield was really important. That allowed the fallback to happen, you to get a little more map control. But the problem is they never really dealt with smoke, even dropping case. All that hard destruction and emphasis in your triple wall really just diluted as everyone just pushed from one direction again. And I mentioned this, so long as Gusic can allow that funnel to happen, they can deny it. And what happened? A funnel occurred in Astro, and they denied it with the smoke. Pretty seamless stuff, and that'll give them their second round win, despite the fact that they were down the man count from the very get-go. That's very worrying here for Psych Ward, as they were building up pretty well. They didn't lose anybody until they finally got into some gun engagements at the top floor, and they were looking to set up in a really good position to actually get the plant down, but it never happened because they lost case. So I'm hoping that can change. I'm not too sure. At least we'll be probably going to kitchen dining once again, as both the top floor sites have already been won, and Gusic struggled a lot with that middle ground area. But that came down to, like you and I mentioned, just overextension and not finding refrags, which in terms of Gusic, that has been their biggest problem, especially around number 1, was just not finding anyone at the right place at the right time for refrags.
They did a much better job at round 2 and round 3 as well. You noticed it when the first round was going underway for the quick entry from Psych Ward, where they found the 2 roamers on that second floor. They weren't able to get away. They instead tried to be a little bit greedy, or at least Baxley did. I'm tired of saying it over and over again, but they tried to be greedy to go for the refrag instead of just taking a step away. Baxley learned from that. In round 2, you could see that he kind of got flushed away from that second floor position. He goes ahead and drops through Skylight side, steps in from below, and gets away from the situation. That's what he needed to do. Kept him alive and allowed for him to get 2 kills total in that round, which really just swung the pacing more in their favor and gave Team Gusic that win, especially when it came down to a 1v1 at the end, even though it was for only 0.5 seconds total, right? But still, a 1v1, those 2 kills are pivotal, and it was very important that Baxley stayed alive for it. You can see it in that last round as well. He was very quick in the rotate. He was kind of playing his own game, trying to keep things similar, right? But it was a really important round for them because they lost a player, right? Teddy was out for the count. They needed to they were forced to play the round out, a man down essentially, and he didn't even have time to put his util down. It was that bad for him. He's lagging, can't be useful for the squad, and I just don't know how Psych Ward lose that position and lose their advantage they have in terms of man count. Yeah, they lost Sean in a bad spot, and I think Sean's probably their best fragger after we saw the performance in round 1 and a little bit in round 2. But we just didn't see him line up there in round 3 because his head just got capped off, and it was not a good position for him. Unlimited just found a prime opportune for it. He was quickly refragged back, though, which wasn't a very bad spot, but they didn't clear that corner door leading inside a trophy. The Mossberg comes out, the Toxic Babe finishes the job. It slows down the attack even further, forces them to go back through statuary side, which is why we had to see them loop all the way around to head all the way around towards the front entrance towards trophy. And that's where the kill was inevitably had to finish that round off.
Yeah, Psych Ward, it feels once we get past that first minute 30, they kind of just turn off their brains almost. It kind of sucks because that first minute 30, they play really damn good. They clear out the shield underneath. They basically remove all of the roam, and Baxley just comes back on a rotation, but that was really it. And they could have dealt with it pretty well in theory if they had something to cover it. And then once they start actually trying to get into sight, they just kind of switch right off and they run into a smoke in close quarters, which is never a good idea, ever. I don't know why we didn't have a rotation occur where we could go across the other side of the map, because if you're playing close near any of the corners located inside a trophy, unless you're near like the cabinet, you're kind of dead, especially if someone comes in from trophy entrance. You're kind of just a sitting duck at that point. If we had a double push occur, that could have been much more successful. Even if you lost that player near trophy entrance, you still would have dealt with the smoke, and that would have made planting in deer 10 times easier, because all you have to do is worry about Amp essentially and Baxley coming back from the roam, but you already killed him. So it's just Amp essentially, but you never got to that because you never went on that rotation. Again, big issue for Psych Ward. They just focus on one direction and that is it. And the only time that worked out is because a lot of people just kind of got in front of them like a brick wall, but luckily they had the sledge to hammer right through that wall and kill them, and also kill through all the vertical play. So that was effective in and of itself on round number 1, but that was the only time it worked out for them. And that was more or less just them catching Gusic off guard. Now they kind of have an understanding after these first couple of rounds as to what they need to do to prepare better. And they're already doing it top notch, to be honest, Scott.
Yeah, I think things are going fairly well for both sides, but we'll take a short little break in between. We're going to work everything out. There's a bit of a problem initially with a debate between problems in the background. We'll solve all that and be right back with more action. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. The game's still going to go on.
bottom of the ocean. I'm at the bottom of the sea. I'm at the bottom of the ocean. Don't know if I'll make it back home.
Welcome back, everybody. Sorry for the bit of a belated, I guess, return for us, but we're ready to get things back underway here. Round 4. Team Gusic still up 2-1. A very lackluster performance in round 1, a flawless round return for Psych Ward, but from then, it's been Team Gusic's game to win, and they've done just that. 2 rounds back to back. We're going to be heading back to that tertiary objective choice here. Dining room and kitchen here, John. We saw this one played out last time for Psych Ward. Second floor was basically a non-denominator as they completely lost any and all sorts of control in terms of Team Gusic, and Psych Ward flushed through sight and just cleared everything in a very emphatic fashion.
Psych Ward really had the element of surprise when going in on that roam clear. I just don't think Team Gusic was anticipating that much aggression off the cuff. So maybe this time around, this will be a win for them. Other than that, though, they've been quite successful on the other top floors, Trophy Room and also Aviator in games, or Planes in games, as especially Chief likes to coin it as that. But the Pulse pick now in play by... Yeah, that is actually the proper way to call that. Yes. They should actually change that. Someone should make a petition on that. Those always tend to be successful for some odd reason. Not. Anyways, off the cap can we go back onto Pulse, a little bit more of a normal pick, and if it weren't for the fact that Melusi no longer has her nitro cells, as she is now relegated to a bulletproof camera, we would have 5 nitros, which is a lot to handle, and I think because of that, Team Gusic, they might opt to just try to play the site a little bit more, slash that first floor in comparison to stacking a lot of bodies up above, because that didn't really work out for them, so might as well just remove the biggest mistake you made on that first round and just try to adapt around it. And I think just bringing several different nitro cells and just kind of spreading yourself out on that first floor a lot more in comparison to the second floor is probably the better call up against Psychic Ward's very explosive attacking starts.
The way that we've seen a lot of this game kind of pan out and play for him, it seems to be that playing control of the opposite floor is the most pivotal factor, and for Psych Ward now in the attack, they do need to gain control of second floor. That's just the meta of the game as it is right now, but you also need to be able to clear out any and all possible outliers that may, remain elsewhere, and there's 2 of them as of the current moment. One of them's Baxley, who's sitting inside living, barely avoiding being tagged through that soft wall connecting over towards that top center, but there's also a player on the second floor that was kind of holding close. I think they've actually made that slight rotation away. They did not want to lie there any longer. Teddy's now over by Astronomy instead. Amp's not far behind, so there's still a couple options to say for Psych Ward to lose a life or lose a limb, so to say, if they get a little bit too aggressive without clearing all of their angles. But they'll finally gain control of the master bedroom, still wary as there is a cardiac sensor down below in the hands of Baxley, who's been phenomenal so far, and we have seen 2 nitro cell kills tonight already in terms of this matchup. One was a very early toss that found impact, and the second one was tossed, but it was just through a doorway to find impact. But now he's going to toss a nitro. Will it be able to find a kill? They'll slightly move away. Baxley will unfortunately not give the right information. It'll be popped a little bit too soon, and that gives them an outlook, a bit of a sight line down below. Finally, though, Nar will detonate his. This one takes out Korn. Feet of the Zofia player no longer an option. Hard breach denial will be removed, but you still don't really have the option to move your hard breach in just yet. Dojin was hanging out last we knew over in Master Bedroom. He needs to make the rotation down towards Skylight Hall, be able to try to drop some of these hard walls and give them a sight line towards the site.
Ooh, Team Gusic being quite elusive against that vertical play. C4 gets detonated, but it's not going to work out. But the gunfire surely will, as everyone just ends up dying against Team Gusic's defensive hold. Psych Ward falling to the wayside, just catching flies at this point now as they're all dead and decomposing. A flawless round for Team Gusic and much better performance overall. Only having a light roam up above really helped them out a lot, and having more of a proactive roam on that first floor, it kind of kept Psych Ward's head just on a constant swivel, and it forced them to waste a lot of time and really not get a lot of pressure applied on that verticality. And when the pressure was finally there, Team Gusic, they had the option of nitro cells just to even out that pressure with pressure of their own.
Pressure's kind of been a really important factor right now for Psych Ward that they tried to put forward, and they haven't really given themselves cut angles when you're talking about clearing out the second floor. So I think there's going to be a question in my mind now for Psych Ward's attack, especially as we head back to that Plains in-game site. Can Team Gusic continue to deny the cut angles, and can they continue to find themselves frags? I think there's a really good chance of that one. Last time we saw this objective, it did come down to a 1v1, but it really was a 2v1 at the end. It was a 1v1 for 0.5 seconds. The flank came through study, shot them through the door, and Kojin was as dead gets. No, sorry, I think it was Iski at the time who's dead as dead gets. And I think there's probably a big factor in my mind for Psych Ward's attack this time around, and it's going to be whether or not Sean can start to pick himself up. Obviously, after round 1, I was expecting a lot from him, but I wasn't really getting that favor in return. He's really showcased his talent. Obviously, after last round, which was a complete and utter pitfall for them, there's going to be a couple, I guess, interesting nominators for them. But I think for Psych Ward, and I think for Team Gusic now in this next round. Team Gusic, they've got themselves in a good position. Psych Ward have not found themselves in a good chance, I should say, to find and pick up frags. And if they're not able to find these opening picks, and I think that's the biggest factor, the opening picks, not refrags, then I think this round is just going to continue to drop in Team Gusic's favor, and we could be done with this map sooner than anticipated.
A little bit of an early on engagement there. Amp losing a lot of his HP, but he's still alive, so he could at least waste plenty of time through this master push. And he does have backup, so maybe that trade game will be very evident, but no, it's going to be just the peel away by Amp. Probably the better call is he'd rather live to fight much deeper in the bombs that are closer to it and maybe be a bit of a nuisance later on in the game, which is really where the mistakes are made quite often by Psych Ward. The first minute being a little bit more smoother, I suppose, a little bit quieter as that rotation is coming into full effect by both Baxley and Amp. They're moving much closer to the south side of the map, allowing Psych Ward to, yes, get map control, but the really big thing is, can they convert that map control over to the other side of the map, or will they be forced in, as Chief would like to call it, another fatal funnel?
Only a minute and 40 seconds remaining, John. Psych Ward really haven't given themselves a great option to push forward towards the site. We know that they were a victim, I should say, of that fatal funnel when it came to Classical Hall because they left that wall soft, and it gave them great sightlines through those floorboards to find any and all pushes that were attempted through Classical Hall. They've reinforced one, and the second one that's a little bit closer. We do know that Unlimited has loved to hold this corner here towards Lamp, but we also know that they got snuffed out quite quickly before by a Zofia player to swing around that Classical Hall corner, and Psych Ward are really not liking that direction, so they're going to go ahead and drone out towards main entrance, maybe look towards default behind vault door, but they also have to be very wary about that hard wall connecting over towards that study side. They've got to be worried about defensive players like Amp as well, who finds Rob. Great opportune kill with the MX4 Storm. It's a 4v5. Kills finally dropping in favor of one side or the other. They'll open up the vault's wall to give themselves an option to maybe try and contend towards the defensive players, but as of the current moment, most of the defensive players are just holding really cheeky tight angles, not giving themselves up in any one direction or the other. Amp can really play to die here as he is quite low, and he was in fact the first player that was tagged on the attempted entry there from Sean, but has not ever actually finished off. Shoulder spotted, and Unlimited whacked off of it. Unfortunately for Narmu, he won't live to tell the tale. He'll be taken in return. Unlimited finds their second in frag. Teddy is not far behind. It's just one player left standing all over again. And it's going to be a Team Gusic dominating round as that one came to a very swift ending just as soon as it started to pick up.
Allowing Amp to live and fall away along with Baxley on the pulse, a major error there for Psych Ward, and it bit them in the rear end as who was the first person to find that entry? It was Amp, denying the push, leading into hunting, and allowing that position near 90 right next to bookshelves to be a lot stronger as well. That shield really never really got broken, and it was just another annoying spot that Psych Ward had to deal with, but just didn't have enough to actually do it. Another very upsetting loss by them. Still only one round win to their name. As we're on the last round here of the first half, Scott, and Team Gusic, it really doesn't look like they're giving any leeway to Psych Ward. They are playing most of these rounds pretty much perfectly in a sense.
Yeah, for Gusic, it's not been a goose egg, right? I mean, they've been playing this one too close to heart. They have been dominating in the majority of these rounds, so the one we obviously saw go the other way. It was a lopsided affair. It was a flawless round for Psych Ward, but all in all, Team Gusic have been taking control of the situation, not been giving up anything at all, and have really learned to adapt after those first few faltering rounds. Despite them winning round 2 and round 3, it did get a little bit closer than I think they necessarily would have liked, and they've definitely figured out the strategies that are working better against Psych Ward, and that's really what R6 comes down to, John. it's a game of adaptability. The team that adapts first and fastest is typically the team that's going to have the advantage going forward, and Psych Ward have not adapted whatsoever. They're very stagnant right now, really just rotting away when it comes to their attacking presence. And that's really not something you want to see from a team like this. They've got some gunners on their squad. I've seen the way that they play. Sean, obviously, I still want to see more out of him from what we saw in round 1, but it just has not been able to happen, and they've just been really lackluster in their performance as the rounds go on, and they're quickly running out of rounds to play with. A Nitro toss through window. That's going to be shot midair. Korn takes care of it quite quickly. A little bit of a shocking moment there, but Psych Ward, they've got to pick things up. They're running out of rounds to continue to bring this one back.
Getting this next, or this round win in particular, to move into the next would be very helpful for them, especially moving in the defensive side. And that first entry pick will definitely soften the blow, or at least before the blow even happens. So great pick for Sean, shutting down Amp. And he already used his C4 as well. The only thing you have to worry about now is just those Vulcan shields. So at least a pretty good start here for Psych Ward as they're still trying to clear out the remnants of this roam. Baxley is going on the long mile, essentially trying to relocate and maybe find a pick of his own, especially if you don't have that information at hand and you're just kind of tunnel visioned on this vertical play. You might get taken care of pretty effectively by Baxley. He just has to play the waiting game, and the more and more comfortable you get, the more and more likely you are to be punished. But luckily that drone will spot out Baxley, forcing him to rotate and reposition once again. But no, you've tunnel visioned on Baxley now, allowing Narmu to step up huge. 2 kills of his own, and now Baxley ascends deeper into the building. Teddy picks up one of the Kojin, but will get eradicated by Rob with the Vulcan shield being detonated. Still, Team Gusic, they're in a power position right now, Scott, as Psych Ward, they are isolated from one another, as Iski is still down below and Rob is by himself and Master.
You can't tunnel vision on one player. You can't hyper fixate, so to say, and that's exactly what we saw. Big problem. Nar stepped up huge, and you'll have another opportunity. It'll be a great situation. Another kill will drop. Rob will stop the bleeding ever so slightly, and now you're going to have to be holding this one a little bit close. Flash ultimately failed. Iski's going to blind himself and his teammate a little bit further. It doesn't take much to blind with those flashes, but you do have to get it near to the enemy. They'll toss it through. It's actually going to go towards landing side. I think it actually misses Unlimited because of that, as more and more toxic baits will be thrown and be unfortunately capping off any of their attempted pushes through that door. But Rob's going to step up big. A 3K to his name. Does find Nar in the frag. Player behind statue itself. Unlimited has to get away from this position. He pre-fires as he attempts to step away. Will get away from Rob, but will not escape Iski, who catches him down and chases the target, finding himself finally some more kills to clean this one up. Psych Ward will scrape by with a round win, and from what I'm apparently being told and what I am stating, I will state as semi-fact for now, when Team Gusic hits 6, that will be when we call this one game. They're fighting it back for they're fighting this one back for, I believe, a skin resolution problem for round 1, I think it was, when Sean had to actually leave at the end of it and switch his skin before coming back.
Always hate having to deal with that. Anyways, I guess we can get back into the round, and what gave Psych Ward the upper hand to give him that victory? Rob gunning out of his mind, and also the repositioning by Iski. I mentioned that Nomad was still underneath. That's a huge problem, still worrying about that other roam game. Coming back to help out Rob really did give him that helping hand, and all the way, that quick rotation, all the way up in towards Bathroom, then into Astro, picking up the last player of that Jaeger. Massive stuff for Psych Ward, just to make sure they have a relatively normal split of 4-2 rather than just 5-1, which could have been detrimental, as if they just make 1 or 2 more mistakes, that's a game. Team Gusic would have only needed 2 more round wins, and they could have just had a couple of attacking sides with some pretty seamless takes, and that would have been a wrap for them. So good stuff by Psych Ward, and now they get to be on the defensive side, starting out on Plains in Games with a bit of a normal setup, I suppose. They're kind of replicating what Team Gusic brought on the board. Let's just hope it works out for them just as well as it did for Gusic.
4-2 scoreline. Technically, I guess you could consider it a 5-1 scoreline, maybe, possibly. I'm not sure where we're trying to put this one, but it is what it is. Team Gusic now trying
Save
to
that for the admins.
Yeah, we'll let them resolve that one going forward. We're just here to talk and sound pretty, but only one of us is doing that job. Team Gusic, we really at each other's throats today. First,
So
I called
sad.
you a friend and not good friend. Yeah.
You started it. Yeah, you
I did
started
start
it.
it. I
That's
did start it.
exactly.
I apologize.
Chat,
I
you see what I
apologize.
have to deal with? This is my deal. This is who I have
Listen,
to
you
deal with.
ratioed me earlier.
But I
didn't-
wouldn't put up with it by anyone else though.
It's true. It's true. If Chief did that to me, smack him. Smack him. Smack him. Even though he's 65 years
Shock,
old,
smacked.
still shocked. You know, you'll go through. Yeah, first kill drops. Team Gusic starting themselves off strong. Sean is taken out. Has really not showcased anything since that round one, which has apparently been reversed as well on top of it. But 5 versus 4. Team Gusic are trying to step in. They've got semi-control of this first floor when it comes to this northern side. And are looking to try to grab more of it. Sorry, when it comes to the southern side. They're trying to grab more of it, but a bit of a problem when it comes to getting past some of the Psych Ward's defense, but not a problem when it comes to that Lamplight in Classical Hall. Unlimited stepping up big, takes out one more. That's going to be robbed for the count. Then they're going to have a bit more of a problem when it comes to getting the player behind bar, but Unlimited has some util to work with. That lifeline utility will dump it towards Classical Hall, trying to get rid of that shield to deny sightline, so the fire will go down, which will slow them down a little bit further. There's really only Toxic Babes besides that to deny time, and Baxley sitting in study as a Montaigne. Amp steps up huge to Iski. Unlimited sprays down one more. It's just Kojin left standing. This is like the 6th time we've seen just Kojin. Then it'll be a flawless round for Team Gusic, dominating in return. So much so that John didn't even have a moment to talk during that besides a slight banter between the two of us.
I mean, you handled it pretty well. Psych
Pretty
Ward
well, pretty
clearly,
well.
clearly
All
did
right,
not.
all right.
Yeah, I gotta throw in some low blows. It was enjoyable to listen to. It was unenjoyable to watch Psych Ward get slapped around so much. That was pretty upsetting. I don't really know what happened. There wasn't much time to really kind of understand what we just witnessed there, Scott. I'm not really too sure what the purpose was of that Vulcan shield at the top of main if you're not going to put any utility around it. If you're going to want to extend near that study / mainish area, it's probably good you also bring out a Wamai. If not, then dump all your ADSs right next to it, as the control of main was lost from the hands of Psych Ward pretty early on in the roam, and it just turned into a collapse by Team Gusic. There wasn't really much else to say. They picked gunfights with several different angles, and it was just a pretty easy push into sight to make that execution a win, and a flawless one at that. Goodbye, Teddy. That one might be rehosted as we're still in the
Goodbye,
prep phase.
Bozo.
I don't know. Yes. Goodbye, Bozo. I hope you enjoyed your stay, and we'll probably see you again very, very soon. But now we're back in a 4-on-5. But even then,
They don't
we've seen
care.
a situation similar to this, and even then, Gusic still won the round despite the man disadvantage off the rip. So I'm not too sure if this will be the saving grace for Psych Ward, or if it will just be even more insult to injury.
Considering how much problems we've had technical difficulty-wise, I would not be shocked, just as our producer is saying. They very well could be out of rehost. I'm not just going to
That's
take
a
his
good
words
point.
for granted. Thank you very much, producer, even though you won't bring me on to CR6 enough times. But Team Gusic, I don't think this is a huge deal for them. They've already won the 4v5 before, and it was a
hello,
fairly
Bozo.
dominant performance from them. Oh, welcome back, Bozo. Teddy's back for the count. But it's going to be Iski. They're making a swift rush in through Pantry side. That's nothing too shocking. It's a fairly standardized attack, and it works out great for them. Baxley and Armory step up big. A second one now dropping in Baxley's favor. And Armory's looking to step in from Pantry's side, but still not really giving themselves a great option to do so. Baxley's rotated to a different direction. A player stepping in from main Skylight Hall, but it's Amp to find themselves on a refrag as they have lost Baxley in the process. Just one player left standing. It's Korn. He's trapped towards backstairs. Maybe has an option to find one or two, but really and truly, Team Gusic are just sitting this one and sitting pretty. They're not even going to plant just yet. They're really biding their time for it. They'll put it down, now forcing the hand of Korn, so to say, but he's trying to make the rotation through main hall. Could step in right now through Mimo. A quick swing. Unlimited will barely miss the opportunity to find the head of his opposition, but Korn won't miss the opportunity instead. Will continue to swing. Didn't find any options in that direction. As I'm going to tease the other direction. He needs to find any sort of look, but he's not been given it so far. I think Gusic are not giving up any sort of angle. They do not want to play this one a bit more lackadaisical, so to say. He'll swing towards corner. It's Amp sitting up on top of a dresser. Finds himself, or should I say a countertop. He finds himself the last kill. And it, in fact, is going to be GG. That is the 6th round win for Team Gusic. That round 1 does, in fact, get reversed because of the skin that was brought in there for the player of Sean. And the scoreline is, in fact, 7-1.
Oh.
A very dominant performance there for the Team Gusic side. They really took it to him.
Anything you can do, I can do better, I guess. We saw most impact by Psych Ward when they were being really aggressive, and then Team Gusic was like, oh yeah, we can do that too. Two separate 4v5s, like Teddy highlighted, where Gusic still won. That's really upsetting for Psych Ward. And starting off the match, I thought it would have been a little bit more favorited towards them, but apparently not. They'll still have to be in the 7-1, 7-2 range. And yeah, no, it's 7-1 because their second round got relegated from
Yep.
them. So yeah, 2 7-1s in a row. That's really concerning, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. Psych Ward, you've got to get your stuff together. You've got to learn how to adapt. Like Scott mentioned, you need to learn how to make those rotations and not just get tunnel visioned. I think you were just tunnel visioned too many of these rounds and just not putting yourself in the right positions to win. So hopefully moving into week 3, you can solve that. But as of now, things are not off to a great start for you.
I get it. Baxley is scary, right? He's a scary dude. He's a very
He is
scary
quite
guy.
intimidating
He's
on the
fragging,
keys.
right? He's a very intimidating
Yeah.
person to face off against, but you don't need to turn 3 people to stare at him, to watch him from that library and study side. You don't got to have everyone turn in that direction. You hyper fixate on one target, and you're going to lose not just your life, but your head from up above, the player that you were initially needing to target. One person needs to turn. That's your flank watch's job. Why is your flank watch not trying to hunt down that player? If you find yourself struggling with a single player like Baxley on that extended roam like that I mentioned, I'll say at the beginning of the game, because I do know how Team Gusic like to play it. They like that extended roam. If you're struggling with that, Jackal's a really good pick to pick up, but obviously nothing's working out for you. I mean, you kind of have to hyperfixate on that player, but you can't hyperfixate and sit still. Hyperfixate and sprint after him. Find him. Be proactive. Where was that aggression we saw in round 1? Sean stepped up huge, was aggressive as all get out, found themselves 2 kills, and Baxley took that one to heart. Hated that. Did not like the fact that they both failed at firing 90% of their shots, and basically the kill got on a lucky last frag. I mean, they did not like that. They did not appreciate that. And I think that Baxley took it to heart and said, we're taking that one back. Going to bring things back into our side. And they did just that. But nonetheless, that's all we got. That's all we have here for UPL's R6 day 3 here of this week for week 2. Fall 2021 starting off with a bit of a downturn if you're a Psych Ward fan, but things are starting to look back up here for Team Gusic. My name's Infernosis, joined here by my great friend fellow, otherwise known as John. Thank you guys very much for watching. Stay tuned for even more R6 action. We'll see you guys tomorrow even. Yeah.
I noticed I drink a lot of sodas when I'm gaming. Might as well drink something that's good for me. Head over to drinkolipop.com and order your favorite flavor.